please. He's just exploring here. It wasn't until 52 years later that Pedro Menendez de Avilés, that's the other guy who we like to talk about here in St. Augustine, he arrives here. And he is the one who establishes St. Augustine. That was 1565. Now, why that huge gap between 1513 and 1565? Over 50 years it took for Spain to establish a permanent settlement here. Well, it wasn't for lack of trying. Spain made many attempts over the decades to create a settlement here in Florida. However, Florida is a lot different from Spain. Now, if you think about it, in Spain, they're wearing heavy wool clothing. Their diets are different. The weather is different. In Florida, it's hot. It's humid. The crops that are growing in Europe are not going to necessarily take as well here. And then, of course, we have that certain time of year where we get really bad storms. Do you know what those are?
Hurricanes.
And Europeans were not used to that at all. So they were getting bombarded. It's almost like adding insult to injury. You're struggling to grow crops. You're possibly starving here, and then you get hit with a hurricane. So they tried many times to establish a settlement here in the whole thing. That wasn't until Pedro Menendez came, and he encountered the native peoples that lived here. And those native peoples were the Timucua. And they had a village at this site known as the village of Cibola. Now the Timucua were living here for thousands of years, long before the Spanish. In fact, we have evidence of the Timucua being at this site going back to around 4000 BCE. Now, to give you an idea of how long ago, that's way before the Egyptians built the pyramids. These guys were here. And they were still flourishing long after the ancient Egyptians were gone and the pyramids were just collecting dust, being buried under the sand. These guys were here that entire time. In fact, the Timucua are the direct descendants of the original inhabitants of Florida, going back to around 12,000 BCE. So, the Spanish get here, they encounter the Timucua. Now, how many of you think, let's see some hands, how many of you think the Timucua were friendly to the Spanish? Raise your hand. Do you think they were friendly to the Spanish? Now, how many of you think they were hostile to the Spanish? Alright, I got news for you. In the beginning, they were friendly. Now, on the other side, how many of you think the Spanish were friendly to the Timucua? Nobody. Okay, one or two hands maybe. How many of you think they were, I'm sorry, I forgot. The first one I said was friendly, right? Or hostile?
Hostile.
How many of you think they were friendly?
Hostile.
So, both parties were friendly to one another in the beginning. And the reason for that is because both parties had something to gain from one another, from that alliance. You see, when the Spanish came, they were really looking to finally get a foothold here in Florida because they were feeling the pressure from other countries, other nations like Spain, or not Spain, France. When France came, 1 year prior, they established Fort Caroline in Jacksonville. That was 1564. They beat the Spanish to the punch. They actually created a